Welcome back, DP Squad. Today we're going to go over notes and summary information from Act 1 of Pygmalion. Um, if you are working on this, I know the language can be a little bit difficult at first, or it might not match up exactly if you have a different version of the book. Remember, my book looks like this, and the audio is not exactly matched to this version of the book, but it will give you some jumping off points. So if you've looked at this packet, either on paper or via Google Docs, there's a lot of background information here that I kind of went over in my last video. So this is just meant to help you. You don't actually have to do anything with this information, just kind of help you visualize um, what might be happening in the play and what the setting is. There's also a summary of who the characters are. And then we get to these guided questions. So remember that guided reading questions are simply meant to help you understand the text better. These are, some of them are a little bit higher level, some of them are just basically plot driven. So I want to go over Act 1 here and give you some of my take on the play and how I view some of these characters. Okay, so like I took a bunch of notes so you can see my whole paper, and it goes on to like a second page. So this is like my active reading strategy. Since I can't write in this text, it's not mine, I don't own it. I take a lot of notes. I pause, I write down important stuff. I kind of like write down just like what I think. Like, why is this important, or why was this said? Maybe this might be important later. This is what I think of this character. So this is just my interpretation of the text. It is meant to maybe guide some of your thinking as you reflect on those discussion questions that I posed to you last time, and I'll go over those again at the end of this video, because you should always have those higher level discussion Socratic based questions in the back of your mind as you're reading. So in Act 1, it's raining, and everyone in the market goes underneath this like portico or this like covered porch. So like if you're looking at this photo, imagine like something like this is the open air market, and they would go under like this bridge or this covering here to get out of the rain. Freddie's looking for a cab, like a car for his mother and his sister, and this sister, man, she sounds so spoiled and like a brat. Like, I cannot stand her. I cannot handle it. And then we meet the flower girl, and the flower girl tricks the mother into giving her money, saying that Freddie bought flowers from her and that she knows Freddie, that they're friends. But that's not true. So Eliza, she's pretty tricky. She's pretty smart. The flower girl, who is Eliza, she's our protagonist, if you will. She's 18 to 20. She's very dirty. She speaks poorly. And she becomes upset when the man tells her that she's being watched by the note taker. And she's upset because she does not want to be arrested. She's not doing anything wrong. And she's really afraid that she's going to be arrested or targeted somehow by this note taker. And the more upset she gets, the more unclear her speech becomes, the more colloquial it becomes. So remember last time we talked about, and in that information up top, we know that Eliza speaks this certain dialect of English. It's called Cockney. It's from like the London slums, and it can be really difficult to understand. So if you're trying to read that, I would highly recommend that you try and listen to that, especially because Henry Higgins is a linguist, and in that effort, George Bernard Shaw kind of writes some of what she says phonetically, which is maybe not necessarily how you're used to seeing language. I'm trying to look for an example here real quick. So the actual like way that it's written can be difficult to read sometimes. Anyway, so the note taker remarks on how he can tell where everyone is from and where they live just by the way they speak. So he's like using his superpower. And the bystanders are amazed. They're like, wow, you can figure that out. And the way that linguists do that is that they study speech patterns and differences in the way we emphasize words, in the way that we use certain words. And the gentleman who turns out to be Colonel Pickering is another linguist who is the author of A Spoken Sanskrit. He's really kind to Eliza, whereas Henry Higgins is very brash or forceful with her. It seems that the general is more like loving and is essentially going to be our foil to Henry Higgins. He's going to be the opposite. So showing that a linguist can be both analytical and have feelings and have emotions and be able to, kind of step away from the science a little bit. So Henry Higgins is indeed very boastful. He's the author of the Higgins Universal Alphabet. He wrote his own alphabet. And he bets Colonel Pickering that he can transform Eliza into a proper lady in 3 months. That he can take her and he can mold her, just like Pygmalion did with his sculpture, that he can take Eliza and mold her into a lady, and that he can pass her off at this very fancy banquet as a person of high society. And you know how he's going to do that? He's going to change the way she speaks. He's also going to give her a bath, a real one, soon. But that's going to be the main way in which he transforms her. He's super rude. He tells Eliza to shut up and that she's an embarrassment to the English language, that she shouldn't even be allowed to use language. And Act 1 ends with Eliza going home to her room. That really, it really reveals the kind of life that she leads right now. She has a small room. It's just one. It has damp, old wallpaper. It's probably smelly, like peeling off the walls. There's a broken window that's like covered with paper. She has big dreams, though. She has magazine photos and fashion photos from she has all this stuff like taped up on her walls. And so she's not nearly as simple as Henry Higgins thinks that she is, but he doesn't know that because he doesn't know her. And she keeps this empty bird cage where she used to have a bird, but then he died. So she hangs on to some of those things. And the only other things in her room are a bed, a basin, a looking glass, an alarm clock, a fireplace that she doesn't use, and a gas lamplight. And she pays 4 shillings a week for this place that she lives that is in kind of disrepair. All right, so if you have this book, which I know some of you do and some of you don't, if you look at the top of page 14, trying to put it on my camera. That's 15. Other way, Riggs. There we go. Sorry, guys. This is super hard for me to figure out. You can see that a bunch of this language up here is super weird. It says, the flower girl, ooh, ye, ya, so sane is he? Yeah, like it looks like super weird. That's going to be the phonetic speech. And again, if I were you, I would like really try and listen to part of this, especially this part here on page 14, because it can get really complicated. So in your discussion or in your guided reading questions, it says what mood is set by the stage direction at the beginning of Act 1. And so we know that stage directions are set apart by those italics on what is my page 12, or the 3rd page of the text. There's a huge section of stage direction You can also look at this part about Freddie, at the very beginning. On it's my page 11. But it'll give you some stage direction. Again, stage directions are set apart by italics. How does the flower girl speak? We did talk about that. What can we infer about the flower girl from her stage directions and her appearance? That is going to be in the italics on my page 13, again, or the third page of the text. The note taker called the flower girl a silly girl, but then also tells her to shut up. What can we infer about his personality from these lines and interactions? Okay, so we're using this word infer a lot, and I want to make sure that everybody understands what infer means. So infer is essentially the English version of the word hypothesis. You are going to make you're going to come to some conclusions about the flower girl, about Henry Higgins, based on the evidence that's provided to you in the text. So I kind of told you about my inference of Henry Higgins' personality. He's boastful, he's rude, he's brash. And I understand that because he is mean to Eliza. He tells her to shut up. That is in no way ever going to be nice. So again, an inference is just a prediction or a hypothesis of what you are pulling from the text. And then in this, we're going to do character analysis, which is examples of characterization of Eliza from Act 1. So remember that characterization includes the way that Eliza speaks, the way she looks, how she acts, how she affects others, and how others treat her. We used to use this acronym called STEAL, maybe? Speech, thoughts, effects on others, affects on others, and language or looks. So you can think about Eliza in that way. And then for your extended response, you're just going to essentially take the information from your chart and you're going to write it into a paragraph, okay? So explain what internal and external characteristics might have caused Eliza to react this way when she yells back at Henry Higgins. And as you continue reading, I want you to think about how Henry Higgins is going to deal with such a strong-willed female. He has his own perceptions of her and who she is and what she's doing and how he can make her better. But we're going to find that Eliza is also going to impact or affect Henry Higgins as a man and as a person. So think about how their two personalities are going to collide as you continue through the text. As a reminder, I said I was going to go over those discussion questions again. So as you're reading, I want you to consider the ways in which we can connect this text to modern day. And I know it sounds like impossible because how can a play from London in the early 1900s, how can that possibly affect what's happening in our society today? So the biggest way, the biggest connection that we're going to be able to make is through the use of language. So how does Eliza represent people from poor communities today? How are people from poor communities still treated differently? How are they viewed by society? And how does that affect who they are as a person and how they react to certain situations like people watching them? And how can language affect how we view others? And so when someone speaks a certain way or has a certain accent or a certain dialect, how do we view them? How does that change perception? And how does it impact perception? And if someone uses slang or, lower level vocabulary words in what is maybe supposed to be a high vocabulary setting? How does that impact how we view them? How does this text share themes of modern day texts? So as you are reading, and maybe if you're looking at that theme work later in the packet, how are those themes represented in other works? And how does the modality of the text, how does it being a play, impact how the readers interpret the text? And then, so what larger global issues can you pull from this text? That's the last one. So as you are reading, know that I'm available to you via Google Meet, Google Gmail, Google Voice. So if I can assist you, please let me know. Next week, I will share some information about Act 2 with you, and we will keep on trucking forward. Happy summer.